Well, hello friends, welcome back to the shop. Today is Sunday, July 23rd. I got the date right this time. And beautiful day today. It's only about 70, 75 degrees at this point in the morning. It's going to go up to about 80. It's been unbelievably hot the past few days, you know, in the high 90s. And we've had a lot of humidity. There's been thunderstorms in the evening and all that. So today it looks like it's going to be a nice break, and I'm going to make this video and get outside and weed the vegetable garden before it gets any hotter. So I hope you're all having a great weekend. You know, I saw somebody do a video recently where they made fun of people that talk about the weather in their videos. And, you know, at first I thought, gee, I hope I'm not boring a lot of people with the weather, but yeah, I like to talk about the weather. It's an important part of all of our lives, and it's one of those things, like a pipe, that we all have in common. You know, we can all complain when it's hot and complain when it's cold. It's sort of a binder that helps bring us all together in one way or the other. We're all experiencing weather. So I think that's why it's so common to, when you meet somebody and in an awkward moment, you'll say, gee, sure is hot. I think it's just because it's a shared experience. And by the way, I'm trying a bit of an experiment today. I've added a microphone that, you know, previously I was just using the onboard microphone of the camera, which is why I tended to be a bit closer than I am right now. And that worked quite well, but as you've probably noticed here in the shop, there's a lot of background noises and you know, things like the pipes humming and the furnace, of course, coming on. And I'm hoping this microphone will help mitigate some of that. It certainly isn't going to get rid of the furnace coming on noise, but let's just see. So let me know what you think of the audio quality, and I'll listen to it as I'm editing, and hopefully it will not be too bad. And speaking of editing, I did get the new computer that I told you about last time, and it is wonderful. It's worked quite nicely. And I edited the next of the Peterson, or the pre-Republic era Peterson restoration videos that is my current series. I edited last night one that normally would have had to render overnight. It was you know, complicated enough with various clips and all that, that on my old computer, even when it was running perfectly, it would have had to have rendered overnight, and it rendered in about 20 minutes on the new one. So I'm quite happy about that. Sorry, I've got the microphone clipped to my lighter pocket, so I'll have to stop putting my lighter in that pocket, I guess. So I had a couple things I wanted to talk about today. I'm smoking that Marksman Jumbo that I've shown you before, and I did a series on the restoration. And I was in a haunted bookshop mood this morning, so that's what we're smoking. It's some haunted bookshop. Although we're going to change that shortly, and you'll see why. I wanted to give a couple of quick shout outs today. The first one, and both of these guys are folks that I've given shout outs to before, but for different reasons. The first one is a guy going by the name Sasquatch Piper 2. And those of you that were subscribed to Sasquatch Piper know that he, good guy, makes some very nice conversational videos, often while he's walking or lunting in the woods, smoking his pipe. Really the kind of video you like to watch while you're smoking a pipe. It's good stuff. Well, unfortunately, Sasquatch Piper apparently had his channel hacked and lost it, and unfortunately had to start over from scratch. Couldn't use the same name, so now he is Sasquatch Piper 2. So if you remember Sasquatch Piper, I'll put a link above and below. Please go and give him a subscription and get him back into the community in full. He's a good guy. Oh gee. We may have to pause here. There we go. The other guy that I wanted to mention, and this is really by way of an apology, is my friend Pipe Tree. Pipetree is having a giveaway right now for his 100 sub, reaching his 100 sub mark. And I promised him a video, and I just have not had time to do it yet, Tree. I'm sorry about that. What he was asking for the VRs was to show a collection of something that you collect that's not pipe related. And I know exactly what I want to do. I want to show you some of the old fly tying vices that I've collected over the years. But to do that, I have to gather them up, which isn't too difficult, but I have to bring them all down to the shop. I have to make room for them. And right now I've got 4 pipes on the bench that I'm working on simultaneously. It would be too disruptive right now to do it. So I'm hoping that I can get that video done before the end of the month, which is his current deadline, although he's being a bit fluid with his deadline, so it may move out even further. Anyway, there's been some interesting VRs so far. Go check out Pipetree. If you haven't subscribed to him, give him a sub, and consider entering his contest. He's a great guy, and in his latest video he's wearing a fez, so you know he's just a top-notch guy. We fez wearers have to stick together. All right, so this is getting pretty low. I actually started smoking this while I was fiddling around with the microphone, trying to get it to work. So the main topic I'd like to talk about today is one that you know, it's something that we probably don't give as much thought as maybe we should, because it's kind of a routine, just something you got to do, and that is tamping. Yeah, tamping your tobacco, and I just want to talk about that for a bit, because I've recently learned something very interesting and very useful that I wanted to share with you all, but I figured I'll do that in the context of a larger discussion about tamping. So what is tamping and why do we do it? Well, in a very simple way of putting it, and I'm sure you all are familiar with tamping, but you know, you light your pipe and then the tobacco initially will often swell up a bit, and you wind up with a little bit of a doming of tobacco and ash on the top. So it makes sense to not have that fly around and land on your clothing and all that. So you take a tamper and you just gently push down a little bit. And then you can continue on smoking. And occasionally, if you need to relight and you've got a big layer of fluffy ash on the top, it's going to be difficult to get the flame through that to the tobacco. So you'll tamp a bit and compress down that layer of ash without compressing the tobacco, kind of like I'm going to do right now. And then you can move on and relight. And I relight quite frequently when I'm talking to you because I forget to puff. It's silly, I know, but I'm sure that all you guys that have made these videos know what I'm talking about. So, I think the most important rule of tamping, if there are such things as rules of tamping, is to go lightly. You do not want to change the packing of the tobacco at all. So when you pack your pipe, and boy, that's a video in and of itself, the goal of all the different methods that you'll hear about packing the pipe is to get loose tobacco at the bottom and have the sort of packing, the tightness of the tobacco increase as you go up to a reasonable degree. You should be able to easily draw air through it, but you don't want that bottom to be tightly packed, because that's going to occlude the air hole and limit airflow around the base of the bowl. So keeping that layer at the bottom lightly packed is really important. Therefore, when you're tamping the ash down, you don't want to go ramming it down in there, because that's going to compress that lower layer. You just want to use enough pressure. If you imagine the ash on the top in the same, similar to like a cigar ash, you just want to use enough pressure that you'll be able to compress that ash, but not affect the tobacco below. Now, tampers come in a wide variety. I know you're all familiar with many different types of tampers. I've got a few here that I thought I'd show just for fun. And I'm sure you've seen many. Well, you probably haven't seen this one. I'm a bad person. I'll use just about anything to tamp a pipe if it's at hand, including my fingers, which hurts sometimes, but I never lose them. So they're always available. I should knock on wood that I've never lost them. I would hate to lose them. But yeah, you can take your finger and poke it down there very gently, because if you poke hard, you're going to hit the ember and burn your finger. And if you poke hard, you're going to compress the tobacco. So, but you can do better than a finger. The other thing that I've often used here in the shop, and I've tried to get away from because this is just bad advice. I should not even be showing this, but yeah, the screws and bolts and whatnot, I've often just picked those up and tamped away with them. Don't do that. You've all seen the check tool. You're all familiar with this guy. Very versatile. Folds up, makes a nice tamper, and good solid piece of metal. Has some useful tools on it. Cheap. I will buy these every once in a while. I'll just add 3 or 4 of them to my shopping cart when I'm ordering from one of the online stores. And I lose them all the time. I leave them outside. I leave them in my car. The good thing about them is, even if I lose one, there's usually one nearby, so it's not a big deal. And you can keep them on your keychain, but I've never really liked keeping tampers on my keychain. So check tool is a good option. You've all seen these golf tees. This one is from Rick Black. I use these a lot in the shop, and I like them for a number of reasons. I actually don't think they're the best tamper in the world. They're okay. They do the job, but they're made of wood, so you can get them through airport security with no issue. They're essentially disposable, and again, you can keep a handful in your pocket and distribute them throughout your life, and you'll always have a tamper available. A couple of higher end versions. This little guy is a really nice tamper. It's made by a company called 8 Deco. Let's see if I can get that in focus for you. There you go, 8 Deco. And this is bamboo, and then it's got a metal end on it here. The bottom is curved, which is kind of nice because it lets you, when you're packing, when you're tamping, you kind of don't want to tamp in the middle much, but you want to keep that ash off the sides. So it allows you to kind of rotate around like that and do a nice job. Also, those holes, although I don't use them very often, you can technically be tamping and puffing at the same time, which may save you a relight, which I wish I had done now. And you can spend a lot of money on tampers. This is not one that was very expensive. These are under $10. They might even be $5. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I got this one. But this is the one that I keep by my chair in the family room and reach for often. I like this one if I'm not using a drywall screw. And a couple others. This is one that was made for me by my good friend Kirk Fitzgerald. And this is made out of briar. It's actually from the same piece of briar that Kirk made a pipe out of for me. So it's a companion piece. Yeah, I like this a lot. Wooden tampers, I make them, I use them. I think they're perfectly fine. They don't last forever because they're made of wood, but they're beautiful and they feel good in the hand. And lastly, I'll show you this one just as a curiosity. This little guy was, I was playing around with spindle turning, and I made this because I was playing around with spindle turning, but also it's the right size to get down into clay pipes. And I never finished it, which is why it's so grungy looking. It's actually made out of cherry wood. But I keep this around when I'm smoking a clay pipe, and you need something smaller. The clay pipe bowls tend to be too small to accept a tamper like this. So it's another little guy there. So there's lots of options, and essentially you can use anything that's flat and relatively heat resistant. And again, the goal is to just keep that ash on the top manageable. So that you can continue to have the tobacco burn. And when you relight, it helps with the relight. And I'll talk about that more in a moment. I think really tamping is as important as packing. And it takes a long time to develop a tamping technique that works for you. And I'm pretty happy with my tamping technique, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm comfortable with it. But recently, I heard a very interesting interview. I was listening to Brian Levine's, I think it's called the Pipe Radio Show podcast. Interesting program if you haven't seen it. And Brian was interviewing a man by the name of Joe Langford. And if you don't know who Joe Langford is, you actually probably at least know his work, because Joe Langford is the guy that blends all of the Seattle Pipe Club blends. Real interesting guy. It was a great interview. If you are into podcasts, I highly recommend you check out the Pipe Radio Show podcast and listen to some of Brian's interviews. He's a good interviewer. He has interesting folks on all the time. So one of the things that Joe talked about was tamping. And he has a method that's subtly different from the method that I use. And it was interesting, so I thought I'd give it a try. And I've been really impressed with what a difference this has made in terms of keeping tobacco lit. Even flakes, wet tobaccos that normally you'd think you'd have to dry out to smoke successfully. So I'm going to demonstrate this. I've actually got this is one of my Briar Spirit pipes, also made by Kirk Fitzgerald, and you've seen me smoke this a few times. I'm going to use this, and I have somewhere, here we go, some L.J. Peretti Scottish Flake. And Scottish Flake is tobacco one of these tobaccos that I did not think I would enjoy, but I am very much enjoying. It's a mostly broken flake. You can see it's very dark. These are dark fermented Virginias that are infused with red wine. Quite a nice tobacco. Now this is wet. There's no way I can show you that it's wet, but it is wet. It's not soaking wet, but it would be difficult to smoke this as is. You'd probably want to rub it out finely and let it dry for a while. I'm just going to ball it up and stick it in there. And I'll do that with a couple of pinches, being careful not to pack it too tightly. And do one more, and this one I'm going to make an effort to really ball it up tight. And the reason being is I want to break it up as much as I can and have more of a fine surface of tobacco on there. There we go. So we are packed. I don't know if you can see that or not. Oops, it's falling out all over the place. Let's peel off our bag. Now, the trick to this, so let me back up. You're all familiar with the sort of double lighting of the pipe method. So you first light what's called a charring light. You smoke for a little bit, and then you tamp down, and you light it again. Now, I originally didn't understand that, and back when I was first beginning to smoke pipes, I was rather proud of the fact that I could light with one match and keep it going without having to tamp and do the charring light. Fortunately, I had some old timers around me in the pipe shop who told me I was an idiot, and I was. And they explained to me that that tamping is actually really important. That charring light and then the tamping of the ash is important because it creates a uniform surface across the top of the tobacco that kind of acts the same way that your fingers act when you do the two-finger chimney flue thing to increase the airflow. You're kind of putting a cap over it, and it's helping restrict that airflow and increase the velocity of the air. They didn't explain it this way. This is my thoughts on it after the fact. So it helps the burning. It helps things burn more efficiently, and it also evens out the burn across the top. So you might have a really hot spot on the side that will then lead to burnout of the briar. So by making a uniform surface, you spread that ember out across the top. So normally we'd light this, puff it a few times, and then go in with the tamper. But what Joe's method involves is trying to get a pretty good amount of this tobacco lit and smoked before you tamp it. And I'm going to do that. I'm not going to be able to talk much because it will go out if I talk. So let me go ahead and do this. The goal here is just to char as much of the top as I can. Okay. So I think we're in good shape now. I'm going to puff this a little bit longer. And as you can see, we've got a fairly irregular surface there, which is burnt tobacco now. Now, the problem with these flake tobaccos very often is you'll get that upper surface lit, it'll smolder a bit and then go out, and you have to relight, and you have to relight. Once you get it going, it's fine, but getting it going is difficult. And something to remember in terms of relighting is that when you relight, that's the hottest your tobacco is ever going to be. You know, you're pulling flame right down into the bowl. If you're going to get tongue bit, that's where it's probably going to happen, or at least there's a higher probability that it could happen then. Of course, it can happen later if you got wet tobacco and it's steamy and so on. All right. I'm happy with this. Now, here's the trick. What Joe Langford suggested doing was, you know, normally I'd come in and I'd kind of do this all around the edges and, you know, gently pack it down. What he does, and I'll try to do this in shot for you, is he tamps and twists. Just very subtle little twists. And what this is doing is it's evening out that top layer, and it's distributing the ash, which is essentially carbonized tobacco, in a very uniform pattern. I don't want to dump it out, so, oh, you know what, I'll get out my old flashlight, that ought to help. Yeah, he says. Yeah, you can kind of see that now. So you got this nice flat uniform layer of ash and carbonized tobacco that he described as being like charcoal. And it is charcoal. And this is what's really clever. When you light this now, that entire surface is going to take a uniform light like a charcoal briquette. It's going to burn like a charcoal briquette, and that burning is going to proceed down through the pipe evenly and without any issue. And this, as long as I don't talk too much, this will continue to burn without relight. And this was a difficult tobacco to light. Using my normal method, I never would have been able to get through a bowl of this without several relights. So, I hope you found that interesting. I highly recommend checking out Brian Levine's podcast and looking for the one. There's actually 2 episodes where he interviewed Joe Langford. He talked about tamping in the first episode. They're both very interesting. So guys, I've babbled on enough here. It's coming up on 26 minutes. Sorry I kept you so long this morning, but I thought you'd enjoy hearing a bit more about tamping and some of the physics behind it, and most importantly, this method of distributing the ash. And it's very gentle, just about the weight of the tamper, and just a little twist like that, and you can do it. Give it a try yourself, especially if you got some flake or something that you have difficulty with. I think you'll appreciate the results. It really has made a difference for me. So with that, my friends, I'm going to draw this weekend chat to a close. I thank you all for watching. I thank you in advance for your likes and comments, and certainly for your subscriptions. I really appreciate all of you guys. I do have a contest coming up, I promise, and it's going to be one that you're going to be able to enter whether you're a video maker or not. I am making something for it, and it'll all be apparent soon. So just give me a bit of time to get caught up on other things, and then I'll get that contest put together. So thank you for your subscriptions. If you're not a subscriber, please consider pressing the subscribe button. And have a very good Sunday, and best of luck in the coming week. So until we talk again, I will look forward to speaking to you all again very soon. Goodbye now.